why do all the badminton players that happen to be online consider themselves intermediate players, right? Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Reddit, Discord. By the way, I'm on all these platforms, so give me a follow. Um, but yeah, no one will call themselves a beginner. And if they do, they always will say upper beginner or whatever, or they'll use some made up term, right? Um, and I wanted to prove a point because I've had my own thoughts about this for a while, and it's been bothering me for a while. Now, I posted this video because I was trying to gather data on proving this point, right? You can go scroll down and look at the video. You can decide for yourself. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to spend time playing the clip here. However, I did get some useful data. And as you can see, right, the answer was beginner or intermediate, right? And we got 9 different answers. This was a binary question, yes or no, right? Basically, 0 or 1, beginner or intermediate. And while 59% of y'all did answer beginner, that means also nearly half of y'all didn't answer beginner. So either you said intermediate, one of y'all answered advanced and was actually legit about it, and the rest of y'all made up your own denominators, right? So you can look at the data, but basically what I'm trying to get to y'all to think is the very bottom yellow text, if you can read it. It says, no one agrees on what beginner means. Break this down because there's a few reasons why this might be the case. One, people's perception of badminton is still a backyard sport, right? Not enough people see actual badminton and the absolute high skill ceiling it has, right? That could be a probable reason driving this, I guess, uh, information dissonance, for lack of a better way to say it, right? Two is there's also a personal bias, right? Maybe the footage I posted resonates with a lot of people and they think, hey, I'm quite similar to this level. And they don't want to call themselves a beginner, so they say intermediate, low intermediate. In fact, there was one comment that said this exactly. They said, um, as someone that self-identifies as a low intermediate, this footage is quite similar to me, so I'm going to say low intermediate, or something along the lines of that, right? So that could be the case. Three, um, there is no objective standards, and this is probably, I would say, like at least half of the reason, right? Um, because there are no objective standards, people can bend the labels to whatever they want. If they want to make themselves sound better, they will say, I'm upper beginner, I'm lower intermediate, whatever. Or I had a comment that said like beginner, physical, intermediate tactics, right? And some people will like gaslight themselves into thinking that they're intermediate, right? So I think the biggest driver for this like information dissonance is that lack of objective standards. And then, of course, last but not least, you have relative like environment that you're in. So, what might be considered beginner or intermediate or whatever in one country or one state or even hell one academy, if you want to get really narrowed down, could be totally different. Like for example, the Philippines is a weaker badminton country, so obviously, I would be considered a higher level player there than I am here, and that has been the case, right? Many people have asked me if I'm a varsity player, especially when I was like not as famous and just moved to the Philippines. A lot of people asked me if I was like a varsity player. A lot of people asked me like, did I used to play varsity? Right, I got scouted by a university coach one time. That was a wild story, but I was I am too old for that. But yeah, but here it's like I can get wrecked by like some under 18 players or some under 21 players, right? So it's relativity also matters. So, with these 4 reasons, you can start to see why the labeling is so inconsistent, right? Everyone has their own standard, everyone has their own ego, their own biases as well. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, one, we live in a day and age where cameras are everywhere, so we can use footage instead of just relying on people's subjective and most of the time incorrect assessment of their own skills, we can just say post footage, post gameplay, and we can decide from there how is the skill, right? Because cameras can't lie. Unless the person is posting only highlights, and that's editing, um, you'll always get like an objective idea of how they play. Even with highlights, you can still see technique, but I digress. Two, you develop a universal and agreed upon standard, right? But the issue with this is that it needs to require, it can't just be beginner, intermediate, advanced, because there's just so many levels. You have the casual player, and then there would be like a beginner level advanced, and then you have like the wannabe pro players like me, and there's going to be a beginner level advanced there. And then you have like, top 500, top 250, top 100, top 50, top 10, top 5, right? Because even in there, like the standards um, change, right? What is acceptable at top 100 to 200 play will get absolutely punished once you're in world rank 50 and above, right? So there's an issue there. And don't get me wrong, many people have attempted it. There's plenty of, like, especially Chinese systems and tables that organize, um, like, you need to be able to do these things if you're a beginner. And you need to be able to do these things if you want to be considered intermediate. And I think that's a good step in the right direction, but I think it's still missing something. And I'm not going to sit around here and pretend that I know what that something is, right? Um, I'm just a player myself. I have developed my own leveling system that does take into consideration everyone from beginners all the way up to people of Lin Dan, Li Cheng Wei, absolute GOAT status, right? It's a very exhaustive list. I used ChatGPT a while back, and for me, it works because it's like super exhaustive. It takes into consideration everything, but of course, it's still with its flaws. So what is my suggestion? My suggestion, honestly, like, why y'all care about labels so much? We live in a day and age with cameras. If you want to show off your skill, then show it with footage, right? Show it with you actually doing things. I think that's the easiest way to communicate exactly where you are at, or to be able to exactly see someone else's level, right? With footage. There's no confusion. There's no room for subjectivity. There's no room for bias. The only thing that there might be room for still is relativity. Because if you're used to seeing this kind of level of play, and then you see someone that's dramatically weaker, dramatically better, then obviously that will shift your, I guess, judgment. And then the second best proxy is if you are a player with any achievements, right? But that can still be quite iffy. For example, right, there are a lot of like varsity players in smaller universities in the Philippines who still have like an incorrect form, who still like don't have a backhand, right? I've seen this with my own eyes. So like my Filipino viewers, don't come for me. I've seen it like happen in front of me, right? So there's the problem of accolades with an asterisk. Usually it's a good proxy if you're coming from like a strong uni or from a strong country, but again, it's not a perfect one-to-one still. I guess the I guess intent or goal of this rant is to just look at the problem of like one's inflation, self-inflation, ego, information dissonance, and then suggest like, why bother? Why does it matter, right? If you are a player, the only thing that you should worry about is improving. The only competition you have is yourself, right? That's why I record, because I want to see how I've improved over the years, and review and, yeah, make content on the side, sure, but it's not to like prove to anyone I'm intermediate or beginner or advanced or whatever. It's just so I have a benchmark on how I was yesterday and where I need to work on to be better tomorrow. I hope that makes sense, okay? Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you guys consider your own selves a beginner or intermediate or whatever? Let me know in the comments below.